While you were scrolling through social media today, one man quietly moved $11.5 trillion around the world. You've never heard his name shouted at rallies or seen his face on magazine covers, but Larry Fink controls more money than most countries will ever see. He doesn't need to be famous to own a piece of almost every major company on Earth. This is the story of how a man you've never heard of became one of the most powerful individuals you probably don't know. Most billionaires love being in the spotlight and being the center of attention. They buy social media platforms, launch rockets, or plaster their faces on magazine covers. But what if I told you the most powerful person in global finance deliberately stays invisible? Sounds ominous, right? Well, meet Larry Fink, a name that sends shivers down the spine of every Fortune 500 CEO. Yet most people have never heard of him. And that's exactly how he likes it. Back in 1988, Fink started BlackRock with just $5 million and 8 employees crammed into a single room. No flashy launch party, no media fanfare. Just 8 people who would quietly begin building the largest financial empire in human history. Today, BlackRock manages $11.5 trillion in assets. While tech moguls fight for headlines, Fink has been methodically buying pieces of the world. That's like playing Monopoly on a global scale. And that's not even the best part. By 2016, BlackRock had already reached $5 trillion under management, with 12,000 employees spread across 27 countries. The speed of this expansion wasn't accidental. It was surgical precision, disguised as steady growth. Even the company's name was chosen for maximum invisibility. I mean, a company name like BlackRock sounds boring, unremarkable, and forgettable. An almost perfect camouflage for an operation that would eventually own stakes in almost every major corporation in the world. But owning trillions of dollars is just the beginning. The real question is, what do you do when you own pieces of everyone else's business? Imagine walking into a room where the CEOs of Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Tesla are all sitting around a table. Now imagine you own pieces of all their companies. That's Larry Fink's reality every single day. Here's where it gets scary. On average, over 15% of outstanding shares in major corporations are controlled by just 4 or 5 asset management giants, with BlackRock leading the pack. That means when big corporate decisions get made, Fink's vote often determines the outcome. You think Tim Cook runs Apple? Well, think again. BlackRock owns massive stakes in Apple stock. Same with Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Tesla. Pick any company you know, and I'm 100% sure BlackRock probably owns a piece of it. That's how crazy it is. But ownership is just the weapon, and voting power is how you use it. Through their massive shareholdings, BlackRock can literally determine the outcome of corporate board elections, merger decisions, and strategic directions. When shareholders vote, BlackRock's vote carries the weight of trillions. In October 2021, BlackRock launched something they called their Voting Choice program, supposedly letting institutional clients participate in shareholder voting. But here's the catch. Fink still controls the default votes. It's like offering people a choice while keeping your hand on the steering wheel. Sounds more like deep state strong-arming if you ask me. If deep state actually existed, this would be their brainchild. Usually when Larry Fink talks, most Fortune 500 CEOs don't just listen. They feel inclined to consider following his advice. You might be wondering why? Well, that's because this quiet man from New York literally owns pieces of their companies. If you cross BlackRock, you might find your shareholders voting you out of your own boardroom. And that's not a sight you see every day. But who is this shadow puppeteer pulling the strings of corporate America? And why does a man with this much power work so hard to stay invisible? Larry Fink's $1.3 billion net worth didn't come from launching a viral app or selling electric cars. It came from understanding something most people never figure out. Real power doesn't need publicity. In fact, publicity can be dangerous when you're playing at his level. In 2024 alone, Fink received $30.8 million in compensation. Yet if you asked random people on the street to name the most powerful person in finance, his name wouldn't come up. That's not an oversight or an error. That's intentional. While Elon Musk tweets and Jeff Bezos builds rockets, Fink prefers private meetings with world leaders and central bank governors. No cameras, no press releases, just quiet conversations that reshape global financial policies. Fink learned early in his career that the spotlight can burn you. He watched flashy Wall Street titans rise and fall while he steadily built his empire in the shadows. Every move calculated, every expansion measured, every decision designed to accumulate more control without drawing attention. His annual letters to CEOs carry more weight than most political speeches. These aren't public documents that make headlines. They're private communications that quietly shape corporate behavior worldwide. A suggestion from Larry Fink isn't really a suggestion. It's a directive wrapped in polite language. But even shadow emperors can't avoid controversy forever. And when the political spotlight finally found Larry Fink, it revealed just how much power he'd been quietly accumulating. For years, Larry Fink operated in near-perfect invisibility. Then politics came knocking. And suddenly, everyone wanted to know, who is this man controlling trillions of dollars? The controversy started when Fink began pushing something called ESG investing. ESG, an acronym for environmental, social, and governance. It was a way of investing in companies based on their commitment to one or more ESG factors. In 2020, he warned CEOs that climate change was fundamentally reshaping finance. Suddenly, this quiet puppet master was making public declarations that sent shockwaves through corporate boardrooms. But here's where it gets interesting. Fink found himself under attack from both sides. Climate activists accused him of not doing enough to fight climate change. Conservative politicians labeled him as pushing a dangerous agenda. The man who had spent decades avoiding attention was suddenly in the crosshairs of a culture war. By 2024, the pressure became too much. Fink announced he was no longer using the term ESG because it had been politically weaponized. He even said he was ashamed to be part of the debate. But notice what he didn't say. He didn't say he was backing down from his influence. The irony is perfect. While politicians and activists fought over ESG policies, BlackRock quietly continued managing more money than ever before. Fink learned that you can weather any storm when you control the ship. As the head of the world's largest asset manager, Fink's statements are taken as signals for how the entire financial community thinks. Even his retreat from the ESG debate was a power move, showing that he could step back from public controversy while maintaining private control. But if Larry Fink already owns the present, what's his master plan for the future? While you're debating politics and scrolling through social media, Larry Fink is quietly buying tomorrow, and his vision of the future should terrify and fascinate you in equal measure. BlackRock isn't slowing down. They're expanding into private markets, infrastructure, and emerging technologies. Fink has identified a $68 trillion market opportunity by 2040 in infrastructure investments alone. It's not just stocks and bonds. That's the roads you drive on, the bridges you cross, and the power grids that keep your lights on. In just the past 14 months, BlackRock announced acquisitions of two top firms in the fastest-growing areas of private markets, infrastructure and private credit. While other companies fight for market share in crowded industries, Fink is buying the foundation of civilization itself. Think about it. When you control the infrastructure, you control everything that depends on it. Every business, every government, every person becomes dependent on systems you own pieces of. It's not just financial power, it's a silent takeover. The beautiful part of Fink's strategy is its invisibility. Politicians argue about regulation while he quietly purchases the regulated industries. Activists protest corporate power while he accumulates more of it through infrastructure investments. Critics debate his influence while he builds systems that make their criticisms irrelevant. BlackRock's expansion into private markets means they're not just passive shareholders anymore. They're active owners of the physical world. Roads, bridges, power plants, data centers, and even the cables that carry your internet connection. Piece by piece, Larry Fink is assembling ownership of the future. By 2040, when that $68 trillion infrastructure market fully develops, BlackRock won't just manage money. They'll own the systems that make modern life possible. And Larry Fink will still be the quiet man most people have never heard of, pulling the strings of a world that runs on infrastructure he controls. Larry Fink has cracked the code of true power in the modern world. While celebrities chase fame and politicians chase votes, and some try to chase fame and votes at the same time with disastrous results, he chases control. And he's been winning for decades with practically no competition yet. The lesson here isn't just about one man or one company. It's about understanding how real influence works in our interconnected world. The most dangerous players are the ones you never see coming, the ones who operate in shadows while others fight in spotlights. BlackRock's story reveals an uncomfortable truth. While we debate who's in charge politically, The real decisions might be happening in boardrooms and private meetings most of us will never hear about. True power doesn't need recognition. It just needs results. Larry Fink proves that you don't need to be a household name to own the house. You just need to be smart enough to buy it piece by piece while everyone else is distracted. The next time you hear about corporate decisions that affect millions of lives, remember the quiet man from New York who might have influenced that decision with a simple vote from his massive shareholdings. Because in Larry Fink's world, influence isn't just about who speaks the loudest, it's about who controls the most. Check out our next video about how a superstar's rise to fame led her to revolutionize a whole industry. Subscribe for more real money stories. No lectures, just legends.